Bazelgeuse is a flying wyvern introduced in Monster Hunter World. He is encountered late game as an invading monster, where his role is to fly in and interrupt your hunts with other monsters. Invading monsters have been a thing for a while now, where your quest will get barged in by a monster that is not your quest target, forcing you to change priorities very quickly. Some specific monsters have it as their role. Deviljho in every single Monster Hunter game since his debut has had a high chance of appearing in the majority of high rank quests, and because he can be found in any area, an encounter with him is highly likely. And because he's a powerful threat that you're officially meant to encounter later in the game, you most likely will not be ready for him. Bazelgeuse was a new invading monster introduced in Monster Hunter World. He invades by deliberately seeking out fights between hunters and monsters and attacking them all immediately, usually appearing long before you're ready to face him. When on the ground, Bazel can attack by charging or tackling you, where he drags his body along the ground. He can also smash his entire body down. Other attacks have him shoot a fireball, headbutt, swing his tail, smack it down, hip check, or leap up into the air and land. You might have noticed the scales on the underside of his body and tail. Those are bombs that he drops with every attack, that explode after a delay. The bombs help his attacks cover an even wider area, and make it dangerous to strike back against him. His signature attack has him glide through the sky while dropping bombs. He can do this up to 2 times before diving down. This is actually an attack he likes to do immediately upon invading, which makes it pretty devastating as you often won't see it coming until it's too late. When Bazel enrages, his scales glow, causing the bombs to explode much faster and his attacks to drop even more of them, often at a constant rate. This, however, can lead to his bombs fully depleting, meaning he won't be able to drop any more until they grow back. Bazelgeuse did not return from Monster Hunter World Iceborne, although he did make a brief appearance in a story cutscene. Instead, he was replaced with a variant, Seething Bazelgeuse. This happened with quite a few of World's monsters, where they didn't appear in the expansion, but a new variant of them did. Seething's scales are a dark blue colour, and unlike the base form, he is not an invader. Rather than being able to fight in every single locale in the game, he can only be found in the Elder's Recess. Seething tends to fight more on the ground, and his tail and body will glow independently of each other and regardless of whether he's enraged or not, causing their bombs to be charged. He has a new attack where he sweeps his tail from side to side, spreading bombs behind him, and he attacks at a faster rate. His bombs are more predictable with where they land, as he will only launch them with attacks and not constantly like the base form. Seething's biggest change happens when he powers up further, causing his bomb scales to glow purple. This is because the bombs now function differently, being much larger with even bigger explosions, making Seething much more deadly. These bombs can even stick on walls, and he launches so many of them too. They will only be launched when his tail or body are glowing purple, and with enough damage you can temporarily knock either one out of this state. Seething will also start chaining more attacks together, like being able to tackle twice in a row or slam his tail after a sweep. It goes without saying, but his bombing raid is much harder to avoid as well. He has an ultimate attack, where he uses up all his bombs, scattering them across the area before diving down in a huge explosion and letting off a massive scream. Bazelgeuse later appeared in Monster Hunter Rise's first title update without Seething. Despite only being in the previous game, there are a surprising amount of differences here. While Bazel is an invader again, he will not perform his bombing raid immediately upon entering a fight. Secondly, he will never run out of bombs like in World, but he's also way more consistent with how he releases them, with the positions being scripted. When enraged, he will no longer constantly drop them, and his glowing state is fully tied to his rage. In terms of attacks, he can perform a mid-air dash while dropping bombs. His bombing raid has been altered, so that his bombs cover a much wider area, and he always does 2 passes and will explode upon diving. In many ways, Bazel has been made much more like Seething. While he can still be fought in all maps in the game, the invader aspect has been toned down severely by removing the immediate bombing raid. It's not like the Nintendo Switch wasn't capable of such a thing, because Valstrax has a similar mechanic, they just chose not to implement it. His bombs being launched in fixed positions is also a Seething thing, and does remove some of the chaos that the World version brought. I'd like to take a moment to highlight his theme. Bazelgeuse is the only monster to be introduced in World with a unique theme that was brought over to Rise with a new remix. In World, his theme was purely orchestral, but the Rise version places a heavy emphasis on vocals. Bazelgeuse actually returned for Sunbreak, which makes it his first Master Rank appearance. There aren't that many differences, but he has a new attack where he flies in the air and launches bombs in circles below him, which is funny because they've retroactively given him a mini version of Seething Bazel's nuke attack. Speaking of Seething, he returned for Sunbreak's first title update with some differences compared to the Iceborne version, such as being faster, as well as being available to fight in every area of the game. He also retained some of Bazel's rise changes, such as not being able to run out of bombs and having a deadlier bombing raid. In terms of new attacks, he can smash his head into the ground after rushing forward. While in the air, he can quickly dash while carpet bombing before releasing additional bombs. He also has the circular bomb attack that Bazel gained, in addition to his ultimate nuke. Bazelgeuse feels like a weird choice to make a video on, considering he only originated in World. Out of all the monsters I covered, he is the most recent in terms of appearance. But despite that, he's had quite an interesting journey, starting off as the ultimate invader, then having that aspect stripped from him in his variant, who exchanged it for additional power in what felt like a massive refinement. Then Rise brought the base form back, giving him those same refinements, before finally bringing back Seething again. All this being said, do not confuse the word refinements for improvements. The original Bazelgeuse in World is one of those few monsters from that game that I really like. He's an agent of chaos, doing whatever he wants and tossing bombs everywhere. Bazel is one of those monsters that feels like they wouldn't be possible on an older system. I love how he immediately dive bombs a hunt. It honestly makes him the best invader, and it's such a shame that feature was removed for later entries. This is anecdotal, but I remember a lot of people disliking World Bazel. Because of his random bomb spam and his invasions, a lot of people found him really annoying. It's entirely possible that developers took that criticism too far with Seething, who barely has any presence in Iceborne. That being said, I do like Seething and what they did with him in both forms in Rise and Sunbreak. They're still so much fun, and I think they did a good job further distinguishing Seething in that game. I'm also curious to hear what people think of the themes, because the Rise rendition is basically a one-to-one remake, just with a heavy focus on vocals. I find it hard to choose between them. I love the instruments in the World theme, and the track feels really focused and intense, but the vocals in the Rise version sound much more grand, although the track feels wider if that makes sense. Which version of Bazelgeuse is your favourite? Did you like the World version? Which rendition of his theme do you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and have a good day.